but I'm worried it's actually worse than what we think.
This ain't good.
This is bad.
Oh boy. This might be the end of this shell. Nice. 30 years ago, I bought this Evo 8 that is now sitting behind me, completely torn apart, trailered back from California, put it outside the shop, and always had massive dreams and goals of building this thing into the world's cleanest Evo 8. We have now been working on it for a total of 3 days, and this is where we are at. Down to a bare shell with some doors, with some fenders, a rear bumper, and a trunk. As you can see, we have a ton of parts to go through and start restoring. All the interior is stashed up there. Fuel tank here, and everything for the rear end, the rear axles, the diff, subframe, control arms, and brakes is all back here. There is so much work to do on this car. It's hard to even know where exactly we want to start. So we just need to get to work. Today, I'm going to start out with getting hopefully everything cleaned up. There's some sort of restoration process for every single part, and it greatly varies, whether it's a brake caliper, whether it's a subframe, whether it's a nice aluminum control arm, or whether it's a wiring harness. I decided to get cracking on some of the crustiest parts first. So I started out with the subframe. Gave her a good old pressure wash to knock down this inch of grease and dirt and grime. And after all that was knocked down, busted out the super clean degreaser, is my degreaser of choice. Sprayed it on the subframe, let it saturate and soak in for probably about 5 minutes. Pressure washed her off, and she looks much better. Now, is this good enough for a world's cleanest Evo 8? Nah, it's not. But is it better? Much better. I spent some time cleaning up some more goodies, and it was on to my first pieces of aluminum. These are the front lower control arms. I was hoping these would clean up nice with just some degreaser and a pressure washer. And while they're better, are they nice enough? Not even close. Moving on to the rack and pinion. Thankfully, this thing is in pretty good shape. I feel like all the grease kind of protected these parts from the elements, so we don't have any rust issues, thankfully. We just got a whole lot of crustiness issues. The boots are in good shape, all the lines are in good shape. Later on down the road, I'll still go through this thing and get it refurbished to an OEM spec. Next up was the fuel tank. This is a little bit tricky. I'm trying not to get water inside, so I put the fuel pump and all the other little modules back on it. The hardware I do not have, as it's all getting zinc plated. And of course, we can't get this thing full of water or dirt or anything of the sort. These here are the brake lines and the fuel lines. I spent so much freaking time on these, it's embarrassing. So far, I have 2 different piles. One pile is parts that are finished and cleaned and ready to go back on the car. The other pile being parts that still need to be refurbished in some sort of way. All of the stuff out here, everything over there, that's all stuff that needs to be refurbished. And this massive pile of parts right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. Those are ready to go back on the car. Yeah, we got a ways to go, my friends, but I'm excited. Moving on to all the goodies in the rear. Here we got this extremely crusty aluminum rear subframe, a sway bar that's supposed to be red, but it's so crusty it's black. I got everything degreased and soaking and saturating in the degreaser, and then it's time to move on to the pressure washer. Got all the little goodies cleaned up first, saving the crustiest piece for last. We got all of these parts that are laid out over here cleaned up. All that needs to be powder coated. Unsure what I'm doing with the tank. A couple pieces down there that also need to be powder coated, but I want to go ahead and get this engine bay cleaned up. See what it looks like underneath all of this dirt and grease. Bay is all cleaned up. It's a whole lot nicer. Definitely not nearly as nice as it's going to be, but it's a lot better. I noticed when I was pulling apart the interior, the splines on the steering column here are pretty messed up. So this guy's got to come out, and I figured let's just pull out the rest of this stuff. I was debating pulling out every single piece of this interior But really, there's no point. There's no point in pulling the harnesses that run from the dash all the way to the back. There's a couple other little brackets and stuff that really there is no sense in pulling out. But having the dash bar and the wiring harness and the column out, that's a huge help. Pulled her back outside to clean up the trunk. This thing I had, I think it was gear oil that spilled everywhere in the trunk. So I decided to degrease and pressure wash her out. And this is where stuff kind of takes a turn for the worst. A bunch of damage we were not expecting.
My friends, this is not looking good whatsoever. Sitting here minding my own business, cleaning out the trunk. There was a bottle of gear oil that had spilled and just got oil everywhere. Complete disaster. When I pulled all the trunk liner out, I noticed this blue paint here. Didn't really think anything of it. And as I'm cleaning and making everything nice and pretty like it is on this side, I see a ton of damage, which explains all the blue paint. You see this giant crease right here? Well, for example, it's supposed to look like this side. This is pushed way in. Now from the outside, it looks perfectly fine. I don't see any sort of body damage. The bumper fits perfect. The taillight gaps are very, very beautiful. Everything up in here looks fine. The pocket for the taillight looks fine, but this trunk pan looks pretty mangled up. I'm sure it could be straightened out, but I'm worried it's actually worse than what we think. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing back on the lift. Let's pull the bumper off, take a good look underneath the bumper and see exactly what's going on.
As with any car build or car restoration, there's always going to be some sort of surprise that you're not expecting. This one was pretty interesting, and it was definitely calling for some repairs that were out of my comfort zone.
This ain't good. This is not good. This is bad. Oh boy. This might be the end of the shell. So like we discussed, completely creased right up in here. I think to fix that properly, you'd probably replace the pan. As soon as I pulled the bumper off, the driver's side where the bumper beam bolts on looks completely smashed in compared to the passenger side. So I thought, okay, that's kind of weird. Took a quick glance under the car and I did not like what I saw. Bam. Look at that, dudes. That is not good. So in total, it looks like we have the damage on this piece here. Don't even know what you'd call it. The damage on the trunk pan, the damage on the rail, and not to mention, if you guys have not seen the previous episodes, this quarter panel was fixed very, very poorly. And if we just quickly stick a light back here, you can see how much damage there actually was. It's obviously all fixable, but man, oh man, that is a lot of damage to one shell. And not to mention the damage up front. With the core support, this guy is definitely hit, or something definitely happened right up in here. Spot welds right there broke, and spot welds inside the frame rail, which hold on this core support where the bumper beam bolts on, those all broke. So everything is fixable, but there's 4 pretty intense things going on with the shell. I'm almost half tempted to just start with a new shell. This is pretty bad. I kind of wish I would have seen this earlier. So I put it up in the air some more. If we could find the piece of the rail that goes from there and is spot welded on right there, that's fixable. I just checked, Mitsubishi themselves does not sell that piece anymore. But if we could find someone parting one of these things out and they could lop that off for us, that would be a big help. I think all the sheet metal back here, that's pretty fixable. I don't think there's any sense in replacing that. And then as far as the floor pan itself goes, either replace that or try to bend that back as well. That still leaves us with the pretty messed up quarter panel. Just to see how bad that quarter panel really is, let's set the car down on the ground, grab a little chisel and a hammer, and see how deep this body filler goes. Not only that, it gets worse. Look at this door. Of course we can put a new door on it, but right up in there as well, quite a bit of damage going on. I wasn't lying when I said this thing was a hunk. Definitely is a hunk of crap. The deeper I dig with my hammer and chisel, the worse it gets, the thicker the body filler is. It's very obvious to see that whoever repaired this did not do a proper job, at least in my opinion. Solid 1/4 inch thick.
It is so thick in areas, I'm pretty sure I pulled off like maybe 30 pounds of filler from this quarter panel alone.
Nice. Oh boy. That's bad. Why would you put that much filler? Even like I feel like the stupidest person in the world should know not to use that much filler. I thought I used a lot when I fixed the Evo 10, and I probably used 1/20th of the amount of that filler.
And of course, it gets a little bit worse.
Oh, there's filler over non-prepped metal. Or non-prepped paint, I'm sorry. Straight up gloss black paint with filler over it.
At this point, I feel like I could spend all day on this quarter panel just chiseling and chipping away the body filler. I have no idea how far this goes, how widespread the damage is, so I decided to get some advice from someone who does this kind of work all the time.
I'm gonna make a quick call. This is rough. Hey Val, did you get that picture I sent you? I just sent you a photo of a quarter panel. I wanna know your thoughts.
Okay.
Would you replace this thing, this quarter?
Depends how much bundle on it.
I keep.
If not the whole quarter panel on the bundle, then I wouldn't. If it is, then I would.
Okay, I'll keep chipping away. There's quite a bit. They had like probably a ½ inch of Bondo in some places.
I mean, it looks like somebody didn't want to do the body work and they just filled it in. So get a big screwdriver and a flathead, and just rip through the whole quarter. You're gonna be doing body work on it anyway.
Yeah.
So you want the edges be real metal and without dent. If your edge, like the wheel well edge and your taillight edge and trunk edge are good, I would leave it too.
With the solid advice from my buddy Val in mind, we started working toward the edges of the quarter, hoping all the filler was contained just in the center of this quarter panel. At this point, I'm heavily debating just trying to find another clean shell. I really do like the fact that it does have a sunroof, so if we could stick with this body and the shell, that'd be ideal. And it is super low miles. Not that that is going to be a big concern when this thing is fully rebuilt. Of course, it's going to be produced brand new at that point. But the fact that the shell itself only has 60,000 miles is a big plus. Also, how the heck is this thing this beat up with only 61,000 miles? I decided to bust out the grinder and start grinding away on the edges, see what's going on there. And sure enough, this whole bottom edge, it's all filler.
This is an absolute disaster. Everywhere I look on this quarter panel, there's filler. All the way back here, there's filler. There's probably filler up here. Yes, there's filler all the way up here. This whole bottom edge, it's all filler. This whole quarter panel is just filler. Anyone got a Evo 8 shell for sale? Clean title? I already know what to do. Here's the thing. I've never replaced a quarter in my life, and like we discussed earlier, not only does this thing absolutely need a quarter panel, it also needs that rear frame rail, I guess you would call it, the floor pan for the trunk fixed, and the core support fixed. Well, I'm sure I could keep going all day pulling body filler out of this quarter panel, but at this point I am 100% confident either the quarter is going to be replaced or we're just going to have to find a new shell because there's quite a bit wrong with this shell. So comment below, what would you guys do if you're rebuilding this thing? Replace everything and fix everything, repair everything that's wrong with this shell, or just try to find another good used, preferably low mileage shell with a clean title, which is hard to find. Comment below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out, my good friends, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.